Hello and welcome to episode 91 of Glitch Report. My name is GnittWitt. Thank you so much for stopping by, saying hi, kicking it with me today on the stream of dreams. I cannot refer to the podcast as the show of shows because WrestleMania has that. Who could forget about the things they use to describe the things being words that they use to describe WrestleMania? Anyways, I am your host, GnittWitt. You can find everything that I do over at my Linktree, linktree.com/GnittWitt, GnittWitt, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, making a whole lot of TikToks throughout my time on this earth, and I've been enjoying it. And if you have had the chance to check those out, they're also on Instagram. Some of them make their way to YouTube, but YouTube Shorts only allows 60-second vertical videos, which is a damn pain in the ass. So, you know, as someone who needs an editor, I guess that editor is me. We have a pretty beefy news section to get through today. Coming up on the show, we are going to talk, you know what? Embracer Group back in the news for two reasons. Are they related? You better believe it. We'll cover that as well. We also have some Stellar Blade news to get to. Capcom financials. I know everyone loves it when we run the numbers on these game companies, and damn it, we're going to do it with Capcom today. We have some Fallout 4 news. The upgrade is out now, but perhaps there are a group of people that may be second-class citizens in their ability to get that upgrade. We'll tell you more in a moment. And then we have just a smattering of other news. 7 Days to Die. If you remember 7 Days to Die, that was in early access for a decade. That is coming out of early access. We'll have more details on that. I'm also going to try to explain kind of where I'm at with Horizon Forbidden West, as well as Fallout 76. I've been playing a lot of Fallout 76, and I did play a lot of Horizon Forbidden West, but we're going to I'm going to try to explain like where I'm at with those games, because those have been the two main games that I've been playing. And then before we started recording the show for real, we had a regular viewer, listener, live stream audience member, Puggin' a Burrito in chat. They were talking with me before we started recording the show. Puggin' a Burrito in chat said, what are your hot takes on Titanfall 2? To which I said, the Titanfall 2 is one of the greatest video games ever made, and it would be on a top 10 PlayStation 4 and Xbox One game of the generation list, which got me thinking, what other games would I put on a PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, kind of games of that generation list? So we may need to take a break at some point so I can try to quickly come up with some other games for that list. This might not even be a list that gets completed this week, but as we are late middle period of something like the PlayStation 5 life cycle and stuff like that, maybe it's time to reflect on those games from the last generation and how they hold up today and things like that. So we may have an ongoing series where GnittWitt struggles to name 9 other games as good as Titanfall 2 on the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, but we will keep you informed as it's an ongoing situation. I feel like I'm fucking on CNN or some damn thing of like, oh, we're live from the whatever, and it's an ongoing situation, and we'll be back with more details, except instead of it being, I don't know, the Donald Trump case, it's me trying to come up with PlayStation 4 games. Yeah, I'm live from under the sea. That's where I'm at. All right, this is episode 91, and we got some news to cover. This week, the news felt a little thin. So one of the things that I did is I kind of did stretch my my reaches of the internet a little bit further. So we do have some news stories from Kotaku. We do have some news stories from Video Games Chronicles. As always, shout out to Video Games Chronicles and Eurogamer as well. And it just got me thinking that, like, honestly, if you were like, GnittWitt, like, I know you can only do the podcast once a week, where else can I go to learn about gaming news? Video Games Chronicles is a great place. Kotaku is a pretty good place from my experience. Eurogamer, also a good place. And I would also say Polygon is okay. It's not great. The problem is that a lot of these gaming sites, these gaming news sites, IGN, GameSpot, Game Informer, in a lot of cases, they cover video games. Game is kind of in the name for a lot of them. However, because there is not a lot of money to be made in covering video game news and video game, articles and things like that, beyond reviews and previews and guides, a lot of them start to dip into the realm of other pop culture things like movies and TV shows. And I've probably talked about this on the show before, but I don't care. I just could not care less what the reviews for the fucking Knuckles Paramount Plus TV show is. Like, I don't care. I don't care. I will admit, it was fun reading about everybody talking about, the Fallout TV show and the Last of Us TV show. But at the end of the day, like, I care more about video games and video game news. Even if I didn't do this podcast, I would still care more about video games and video games news than I do video game adjacent media like sci-fi shows. Like, I don't look, one of these days I'm going to watch X-Men 97, right? One of these days I'm going to watch was it X-Men 97? I think that's the new show on Disney Plus, X-Men. Like, one of these days I'm going to watch that show. But at no point am I going to be like, God, I wish I knew what the people who reviewed Stellar Blade think about this X-Men 97. Like, I don't. So when I refer to Video Games Chronicles and Kotaku and Eurogamer and to some extent Polygon, one is that they provide pretty decent, well-reported news stories for me to, like a baby bird and a mama bird, I'm just regurgitating the news back at you. But more importantly, there's a lot less bullshit for me to sift through as it relates to, like, here are the top 10 shows coming to Netflix this week. Like, just fucking stop it. I don't care. Like, if I did, I would go to Rotten Tomatoes, or I would buy a TV guide. Or can you still buy a TV? Can you still buy a TV guide? I need something that is a coaster that I replace every like 3 months. And I'm looking to buy. Can you buy? I'm gonna Google it. Not to be an old man. Can you buy a TV guide? TV guide magazines for sale. Oh, it's just people selling TV guide. Oh God, like ancient fucking TV guide magazines. Anyways, stop this madness and let's talk about games. Embracer Group. Embracer Group, as you may remember, going through a little bit of a rough patch. Yep. Thanks a lot, Saudi Arabia. Now Saudi Arabia can spend more of their money on WWE. Saudi Arabia pulled out of their deal with the Embracer Group, which left them kind of holding the bag a little bit with not a lot of money to invest in the things that they had spent their money on. And as a result, Embracer Group let go a lot of people, closed studios, sold studios. And we hadn't quite heard from Embracer Group for some time. But the last thing that we heard is that they had sold Borderlands and their developer Gearbox to Take-Two. However, they retained the Gearbox publishing label, which is just, the Gearbox helps other companies put out games. But Embracer Group was not done. No. Embracer Group has announced plans to split into 3 separate companies. As if this couldn't get any more nightmarish, now we're dealing with some Cerberus type shit in the form of Embracer Group. Embracer Group will now become Asmodee, Coffee Stain and Friends, and Middle-earth Enterprises and Friends. Those are 3 distinct companies that have formed from the ashes of Embracer Group. And I just want to state this. I want to state this quickly for the record. I'm putting on my Apple Watch. The reason I'm doing that is because the heart rate gets up as I get fired up talking about our good friends at the Embracer Group. Damn it, I want to know. Embracer Group, I felt like was a pretty creepy name. I don't want to be embraced by anything, let alone a group known for doing so. Asmodee, whatever, fine. But Coffee Stain and Friends, a weird name for a company. Coffee Stain Studios, those are the people that did Goat Simulator, among other things. Coffee Stain Studios also went on to publish a bunch of games as well. That's fine. Coffee Stain and Friends. Just call it Coffee Stain. We don't need the and friends thing. We don't. We don't. Middle Earth Enterprises and Friends. The worst name of all of these. Just nonsensical in my opinion. Just too wordy. And I feel like too specific. Now what I will do is I'm going to try to break down where the other companies from Embracer Group fall under this, but it is a bigger mess now than I thought was originally possible. Swedish game and media holding company Embracer Group has announced its plans to split into 3 separate entities. The group will separate into 3 companies: Asmodee, Coffee Stain and Friends, and Middle Earth Enterprises and Friends, each of which will be listed as separate companies on NASDAQ Stockholm. As part of the separation process, Embracer has entered into a new financing agreement through Asmodee, which is worth 900 million euros. Embracer says the proceeds from this will repay existing debt and reduce leverage in the remaining Embracer Group. Asmodee will continue to operate as a publisher and distributor for board games, trading cards, and digital board games, and will consist of 23 fully owned studios. Coffee Stain and Friends will focus on PC, console, and mobile games, including community-driven free-to-play games, live operation games, and indie/AA games. It will operate under premium and free-to-play divisions. The premium segment will consist of Coffee Stain, THQ Nordic, Ghost Ship, Tuxedo Labs, Tarsier, Amplifier Game Invest, and others. So basically, you can expect more Eastern European RPGs from THQ Nordic. You can expect more Goat Simulator silliness and more from Coffee Stain. Tuxedo Labs, those are the people that did what the hell is that Tuxedo Labs game? The Destructible game. Tuxedo Labs. Name escapes me. They made Teardown. Yeah, you should check out if you've not played Teardown, you should check out Teardown. Teardown is very, very cool. And finally, Middle Earth Enterprises and Friends will be, quote, a creative powerhouse in AAA game development and publishing for PC and console. Now, you might be thinking, well, wait a minute. So Coffee Stain and Friends has Coffee Stain, goes with the name, THQ Nordic, Ghost Ship, Tuxedo Labs, and more. What is happening with my good friends at Dambuster, Wild Hog, and more? Well, let me explain. A creative powerhouse in AAA game development and publishing for PC/console, and will own the rights to The Lord of the Rings, Tomb Raider, along with Dead Island, Metro, and Kingdom Come Deliverance. Studios joining Middle Earth Enterprises and Friends will include Crystal Dynamics, Dambuster, Eidos Montreal, Flying Wild Hog, Tripwire, Vertigo Games, Warhorse Studios, and 4A Games. And when I think Middle Earth, I think the people that brought you Guardians of the Galaxy, the game, and Tomb Raider. I think that if you gave Gandalf dual wielding pistols and short shorts and a tank top a la Lara Croft, I think you'd really have something. I think we would be, we would be horny on main for Gandalf in short shorts and dual wielding pistols. But I don't know. We'll see how that goes. I just think it's the unnecessary names for all of this stuff. Middle Earth Enterprises and Friends. I hate that name with almost every fiber in my being. I really do. It's just such a gross like, chill out, Avril Lavigne. Why you got to make it so complicated, man? Like, damn. There's good people. There's good teams in all of this. And you know what? Hey, maybe with them splitting it up into 3, Middle Earth Enterprises and Friends can better support whatever Crystal Dynamics is working on, as regards to Tomb Raider, whatever Eidos Montreal. Like, maybe this will work out. But as of right now, the naming conventions leave me with more questions than answers. In an open letter to shareholders, Embracer Group CEO said the decision to split the group into 3 separate entities will help them work to different strategies. Quote, there is not one way to do business, but some business models are more similar than others. The same goes for business people. The ambitions may be similar, but the approach differs. The similarity between businesses will help make Asmodee, Coffee Stain and Friends, and Middle Earth Enterprises and Friends, the similarities between the businesses that will make up Asmodee, Coffee Stain Studios, and Middle Earth and Enterprises and Friends are striking, but so are also the differences when it comes to go-to market strategies and business profiles. All the companies have bright futures ahead by perfecting what is working for each of them and by continuing to cooperate when it makes sense. There is significant untapped potential within the group, which I am confident the new structure will unleash. This will empower each individual and each team to grow and excel further in their careers, as well as provide them with their own leadership strategic direction. Excuse me. Sorry. Listen, I don't want to hold my breath. I'll pass out live on stream. But bear with me here if I don't sound completely confident in them taking what used to be a clusterfuck of an operation and splitting it into what sounds like 3 clusterfucks of operations now. But let's continue on with Embracer Group. Let's not, ruin a good thing here. The Embracer Group CEO was also out there talking that shit. Here's what he had to say. Let me see if I can pull up these quotes here. He's kind of out there. So, you know how I've criticized the CEOs, these presidents of these companies for putting out very boilerplate blanket statements around the responsibility of the people that have been let go and things like that. And what he has to say may fall into line with some of the criticisms I've had, but let's just remind people one more time the ridiculous story of Embracer Group. Let's remind people how we got there. After several years of rapid expansion through mergers and acquisitions, Embracer announced last May that a $2 billion deal had collapsed at the last minute, leading it to embark on a 9-month restructuring program that resulted in almost 1,400 job cuts, studio closures, and the cancellation of tens of games. The Swedish gaming giant and its CEO faced backlash in the wake of restructuring, which is now complete. And the CEO told GameIndustry.biz that a lot of the criticism leveled at him personally was probably fair. Quote, as a leader and an owner, sometimes you need to take the blame and you need to be humble about it, about if you've made mistakes and if you could have done something differently. He said, quote, I'm sure I deserve a lot of criticism, but I don't think my team or companies deserve all the criticism. I could take a lot of that blame myself, but ultimately I need to believe in the mission we set out, and that is still valid. We are now enabling that by doing this new structure. He goes on, I still feel I have trust from many of or all of my key entrepreneurs and CEOs that have joined the group. It's been difficult, but I think they believe in the mission of Embracer. They also understand the world has changed. We need to change. It's painful. We can't make all the games we wanted to make 3 years ago, but we need to adapt to it. We still make games. We still have one of the biggest, if not the biggest, pipeline of games in the industry, and we have great plans over the coming years or decades. I don't know about that, man. I'm not buying what he's selling. I'm not buying what he's selling. So when he says all of my key entrepreneurs and CEOs still ride with me, they're still members of the bloodline, whatever, it makes me think, yeah, like, because you could just lay off those people if they weren't yes men, right? You could just, if they didn't believe in you and they probably rightfully criticized you, they would probably be out on the street along with the other people who were game developers that you let go. So excuse me if I don't have a lot of tears to cry for the CEO of Embracer Group, a guy who has that golden parachute ready whenever the shit gets bad, when Middle Earth Enterprises wages war with Coffee Stain and friends. You know, remember this podcast. It's kind of like Fallout. It's like, where were you when the bombs dropped? Except it's Embracer Group continuing to implode. Stellar Blade. Stellar Blade, you know it as one of the biggest PS5 games coming out this year. That is the hot, sexy action game with the sexy lady based on the Bible. And I wish I was making up any of that stuff, but I'm not. And here's another thing I wish I was making up. A reference to a racial slur was found in the game prior to release. Now, I don't even know if I click this button. That's not how this works. There we go. So for all the people that are curious about it, you can go check out. I'm looking at it right now. I'm looking at it right now. So I'm sorry if this visual podcast is the only way to see this. You can always go Google it if you want. But there is a reference to a racial slur in that game. We're looking at it right now on the video. I'm going to move this back over. Oops. I need to do this. Sorry, sometimes I forget how to produce the show once I need to do other elements. But basically, there is graffiti in the game. There is a shop in the game called the R Shop. It's called the R Shop. And there are signs in the game pointing you to these different stores in the game called R Shop. There is a sign pointing to the R Shop in Stellar Blade, and next to it is a graffiti, is written graffiti on the building that says hard. So when you read it, it says hard R. If you don't know what that racial slur is, I'm not here to tell you what it is, but when you hear hard R, you might have an idea. When viewed together, this evokes a reference to racist language, which Sony has come out and said is unintentional. They did not, no one meant to put hard R together in Stellar Blade. And I'm going to be honest with you. I know we have this concern around cancel culture, around wokeness in games. I do not believe for a moment that the people that made Stellar Blade intended to put these two pieces of art together in order to evoke a reference to racist language. I don't think that for a moment, but that's what happened. Sony has said that is going to be removed from the game as part of the game's day one patch. So it was, kind of flew under the radar, for lack of a better word, up until close to release. And now will be removed as part of the game's day one patch. There's other stuff coming to that day one patch. They're going to add New Game Plus and other things to it, fixes, all the shit that they put in a day one update because they couldn't get the game finished and out the door. But Sony said, hey, this is going to get removed. We didn't mean for it, not intentional. So there you go. For what it's worth, Stellar Blade getting decent reviews out there. I know there was a demo. People seemed kind of interested in that demo. I don't have the reviews in front of me just yet, but I wasn't planning on doing like a legit review roundup. But according to OpenCritic.com, 83% average rating for Stellar Blade. 86% of critics recommending it out of 74 reviews. So not a bad game. Check it out if that is your thing, but just know that there is a big day one patch coming for updates and fixes, including potentially racist references in the game. Isn't that fun? Let's talk Capcom. Let's move on. Let's talk about Capcom. Capcom has been killing it. And I've talked about this before, but I really want to stress around that PS3 360 era, like late PS3 360 era, and even into some of the early PS4 era, like Capcom was not killing it. Like Capcom was struggling. There were rumors and stories and speculations about, is Capcom going to be, bought by another company? Sony going to swoop in, buy them, Square Enix, whatever. And it was, around that time that Monster Hunter World came out. They got a Resident Evil 7 and those remakes and all of that stuff. Street Fighter 5 did okay, but it wasn't amazing. Like, Capcom has really turned it around at a time when it seemed like they were just kind of swimming in the kiddie pool of mediocrity to some extent. I that's not to say that all their games are bad. I'm a big DMC Devil May Cry guy. As far as Devil May Cry games go, I would actually consider DMC to be the best Devil May Cry game. Now, people out there don't like that. People out there get upset, get offended. Oh my God, they changed the way that Dante acts and behaves and all of that stuff in Devil May Cry. I'm not precious to the universe of Devil May Cry. They want to change it up. Go ahead. They can change it up. I'm cool with it. Mystic Donkey in the chat saying, "Hey, yo, what is up, Mystic Donkey?" The man, the myth, the legend in chat. We are talking Capcom. So Capcom has raised its full year earnings forecast on better than expected game results. Game sales, excuse me. Those game sales being Street Fighter 6 and Dragon's Dogma 2. However, other catalog games have been performing well. The Japanese publisher, which is due to report its full year earnings in May, had already forecast record results for the fiscal year in its original guidance. It announced today that it has raised its net sales forecast by 8.9% to 152,400 million yen. What? That's not how money works. You can't do 142,400 million. Oh, okay. There's a, let me rephrase this. We're not going to do yen because I don't understand how yen works. I don't understand how the Japanese yen works, but I will say they have raised their sales forecast to by 8.9% to 979 million and increased its net income forecast by 8.3% to $278 million. Quote, in our core digital content business, in addition to Street Fighter 6, the latest title in the Street Fighter series, being met with broad acclaim globally, Dragon's Dogma was released in the fourth quarter and has performed favorably, the company said. Further, sales grew for catalog titles consisting primarily of past titles from major series due to their steady popularity. Altogether, this has led to us to expect earnings for this business to exceed our plan. So, doing quite well. Capcom said in January that Street Fighter 6 had sold 3 million copies. Prior to its release last June, Capcom's president said the company aimed to sell 10 million copies of the game, which would break the series record of 7.4 million achieved by Street Fighter V. Dragon's Dogma 2 was released of March 22 of this year. It was Capcom's first $70 US game. 11 days after it was released, the company claimed the sales had surpassed $2.5 million copies. Listen, I love Capcom. I don't even play all of Capcom's games. I love Capcom. I think they put out some fantastic franchises, some fantastic series. I'm always happy. And again, I'm someone who lived through a relatively dark age for Capcom, and it's been very exciting to see them kind of come out the other side. I mean, look, they made a sequel to Dragon's Dogma. Like, that's just crazy. Like, that was not a game when it first came out on the PS3. People were like, oh, yes, this is going to be a franchise. But here we are. And Dragon's Dogma 2, one of the hottest selling games for Capcom. It's so fantastic to see. All right. Let's talk Fallout, boy. I'm not talking the band. The Fallout 4 upgrade isn't free for owners on PlayStation Plus. That's right. PlayStation Plus users are second-class citizens. Now, I just want to explain a couple of things here. It's so weird the way they do this, but I think there's some context to the story that I'd like to try to tackle. So if you remember back when the PlayStation 5 originally came out, people that were downloading cross-generation games like Black Ops Cold War or Spider-Man Miles Morales, those people would download the game to their PlayStation, and then after downloading the game, realize that they had downloaded the PS4 game instead of the PS5 game. You remember that. You might know people who still do that occasionally by accident. Now, one of the reasons that they do that is because PlayStation designed the catalog and library of those games to be different versions, just like draw a line in the sand. This is the PS4 version. This is the PS5 version. On Xbox, there were games that were cross-generational. Think something like Forza Horizon. With Forza Horizon, when you download Forza Horizon onto your Xbox One, it downloads the Xbox One version because it just knows that you have the Xbox One. When you download that same version of Horizon on your Xbox Series X and S, it downloads the appropriate version because it just knows. Microsoft calls it smart delivery. And under the kind of the cataloging of Microsoft games, there's one version of the game that just gets sent to the appropriate console they're trying to run the games on. Seems pretty smart if you ask me. However, Sony chose to do it differently, and that's why you heard about people accidentally downloading the PS5 version or the PS, you couldn't download the PS5 version to the PS4, but you could download the PS4 version to the PS5, right? Whereas with the Xbox Series X, you cannot download the Xbox One version of a game unless it is only made for Xbox One, in which case then you're getting backwards compatibility. But smart delivery means you have the Xbox Series X and you download Forza Horizon, you're getting the Xbox Series X version of Forza Horizon. Smart. Now, does that relate to what is happening with PlayStation Plus? Maybe not, but at least you have an idea of how Sony does the math and organization around separate versions of games for their platforms, regardless of whether it's a game made by them or Microsoft or Bethesda or whoever, right? This is a story that I'm getting from Kotaku.com. PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC are getting Fallout 4's free next-gen upgrade nearly a decade after the post-apocalyptic sequel's original release. Unfortunately, those who have the game in their library through PlayStation Plus are discovering their upgrade won't be free for them. If you purchase the disc or digital version of Fallout 4 on PlayStation 4, downloading the next-gen update, which includes a 60 FPS mode and tons of other improvements, is as simple as going to the PlayStation Store page and selecting the free upgrade option. But players who added the game to their library through a paid PlayStation Plus subscription are now finding they have to pay $20 to buy the entire game all over again. While Fallout 4 is currently included as free in the PlayStation Plus Extra library, it was also part of the PlayStation Plus collection that every subscriber had access to when buying a PS5 shortly after launch. That version of the game doesn't qualify for the free upgrade either, so neither the PS Plus collection or the PS Plus Extra game are not included in the free upgrade. Players are particularly irked because this wrinkle wasn't widely publicized beforehand, even though the paid version of Fallout was on sale for just $5 as of yesterday. Yesterday was Wednesday. So it might be because of the way Sony catalogs the games. I don't know. This is not a problem. This is not a problem for Game Pass, because Game Pass has things like the smart delivery. It would have been nice if people knew that ahead of time. I don't know. So the thing is, I don't know who to blame. I don't know if this is Bethesda's fault. I don't know if it's Microsoft's fault. I don't know if it's Sony's fault. It's like, I'm not here to shift, to shift the blame one way or the other. But there is some context I'd like to provide. So, some people on social media, said, I already own Fallout, which was free via PS Plus years ago, but the new version isn't being granted. It's asking you to pay. Another popular account tweeted, I don't think Fallout 4 claimed from PS Plus are able to upgrade to the PS5 version. Other players responded by noting that this isn't an issue on Xbox Game Pass, where most people also own the game via subscription versus actually paying for it up front. PS Plus players have also flooded the Bethesda Games Discord server with complaints about not being able to redeem the free PS5 version. We're checking on the PS Plus update, wrote one of the store admins. Hang tight. Now, this is hardly the first time. This is the context I wanted to provide. This is hardly the first time this issue has come up for PlayStation Plus subscribers in the age of free PS5 upgrades. It was a problem with the Final Fantasy VII Remake as well. While the PS4 version of the game was free for paid members, they weren't eligible for the paid upgrade to the PS5 version. That's on top of all the other licensing issues players have experienced over the years. It hasn't been uncommon for PlayStation Plus subscribers to find their original game license for a game they bought replaced with ones that had expired when their membership lasts. PS5 has a convoluted system for restoring licenses when players get locked out of their games this way, but it's still a pain. Sony and Bethesda didn't immediately respond for comment. I don't want to get into the licensing issue stuff with PlayStation 5. But it's low key kind of fucked. The way that they handle digital ownership and digital licenses on PlayStation. But I'm going to read this from this is a post that somebody wrote on the GameFAQs forum. I'm just going to read this to you. Downloading PS Plus games overwrites legit owned games. Let me explain. This is from TrueGP on the GameFAQs forums. Short version: if you own the digital version of a game, but there is a PS Plus version and you download that PS Plus version, there is a high chance you will lose access to your legitimately owned game once your PS Plus subscription expires. It will be locked until you either resubscribe or repurchase the game. If you own a digital version of the game and there is a PS Plus version of the same game available, do not download the PS Plus version. I have, or more accurately, had the digital license for the Final Fantasy VII Remake PS5. It's the free upgrade with the disc. However, I have two different PlayStations and one is on a different floor. Since I didn't feel like running upstairs to grab the disc, and since the other PlayStation 5 is a PS5 and the other PlayStation is a PS5 and Final Fantasy VII Remake is currently available as a PS Plus extra title, I figured I'd just download the game to my PS5. Give those improved graphics a whirl. It was nice. Grab the Yuffie DLC while I was at it. Anyway, I played it and whatever. Time passed and eventually my sub expired on Black Friday because of those Black Friday deals that people often get for PS Plus. Well, the deal sucked this year and I wasn't impressed. Plus, there were few games I wanted to buy, but there was also PS Plus games. Weirdly, I found it difficult to initiate a purchase of said games as the page always defaulted to the PS Plus version. Sometimes I could get it to work, but sometimes when I would go to purchase the games, it would just be told you already own that game when I definitely did not. And sure enough, when PS Plus expired, I didn't own the game. I saw this as a chance to purchase some games I was having trouble buying before. But while doing this, I noticed something odd. All my versions of Final Fantasy VII Remake were labeled as locked PS Plus titles, i.e. you need PS Plus to play them. The PS4 version, the PS5 version, and the DLC all locked. I needed to repurchase. Using the restore licensing option in the PS4 menu can usually fix this issue, but it doesn't always work. I don't know where the option is on the PS5. Now, I don't know if this I know there was some messy stuff with Final Fantasy VII Remake. However, I don't know if that's what's causing this separate issue, but I am aware of how fucked the separate versions of games have been on PlayStation in the past, right? So what does it mean? If you own the disc version of Fallout, don't worry about it. If you are playing the PlayStation Plus version of Final Fantasy VII Remake, don't worry about it. That's really all I can say, but it is quite an unfortunate mess. You'd like to think in this like digital era that this would be better, but it seems like in some cases owning the disc is the better way to go, assuming you don't also double dip and download the digital version. Now, if you remember news story from some time ago when I talked about how 87% of classic video games are critically endangered, I have an update to that. There was been talks, people trying to come up with different solutions for preserving games and all of that stuff. One of the ideas that was floating around was the idea that public libraries would support preserving online games. This is kind of in light of the crew being killed, the online functionality in the crew killed, and thus the crew is now dead. RIP the crew. As reported by game developer last week, Entertainment Software Association lawyer Steve England was asked about a theoretical scenario in which public libraries were permitted to preserve online video games after official support had concluded. In response, England said there was currently no combination of limitations ESA members would support to provide remote access. Now keep in mind, the ESA members include virtually every major game company around, including Nintendo, Microsoft, Sony, EA, and Take-Two. Now, currently, video game developers and publishers have no legal obligation to maintain access to online services beyond their official support. It's also not currently legal for fans to resurrect online games that have been abandoned either, although this hasn't stopped several fan efforts for older titles. This has led to dozens of games become completely unplayable, a number that only grows due to the prevalence of titles requiring online connection and in some cases, online servers. England said that a physical location housing these games and allowing easy access isn't a solution in his opinion. He called this kind of access to titles, quote, insufficient progress. Now, Mike Ayes, an advanced access content system attorney, took England's side looking for, quote, more substance in any adjustment of the rules. Ayes said he would have concerns about verification when it comes to establishing physical locations that would preserve online titles, saying that, quote, it's not clear physical premises will actually be effective. Now, in response to this, Video Game Historian Foundation Director Phil Salvador said that public libraries are not best suited to the preservation efforts due to a lack of manpower and the scale of the issue. Last year, Video Game History Foundation, in partnership with the Software Preservation Network, claimed that 87% of classic video games released in the United States were, quote, critically endangered. Now, technology lawyer Kendra Albert condemned the ESA's attitude, especially in regard to concerns that the games could be accessed for non-academic purposes against the wishes of the rights holder. Albert said, "It doesn't feel fair to discount the preservation efforts of academic institutions when it comes to preservation purely because players would be able to access games for non-research purposes." Now, I don't know. It's a lot. There was a lot to take in. I don't know, from a manpower standpoint, from a physical standpoint, that, libraries can support running things like Destiny 1 or The Crew or The Division or World of Warcraft. I don't know if they can handle that sort of thing. But I will tell you this. You should go to your public library. You should go to your public library. Even if you have no reason to go, make sure you get your card updated. Maybe you recently moved. I don't know. But go to your public library because it is a fantastic, they're fantastic places. They really, really are. I'm not a big reader. I don't read a lot. But I went to my public library and they were like, "Hey, oh, we noticed that you use the Amazon audiobook Audible service. Did you know that you can get audiobooks from us for free? You can rent audiobooks?" And I was like, "Really? For free? That's fantastic." They're like, "Oh, we noticed that you pay for, Netflix and Amazon Prime and all that stuff. Did you know that with your library card, you get access to a free streaming service?" And I was like, "That of movies and TV." I was like, "That is fantastic." And of course, you can always rent movies and DVDs and TV shows and stuff from your local library as well. And, but in my local library, I was just I was really blown away by the technology services that they provide to people, right? Whether that is helping people learn, how to use the internet or resume building or language services or, Wi-Fi access or any of that stuff. They're fantastic things. Mine even has a little cafeteria in it, which is kind of fun. I've never tried it out, but I have gone there to print sometimes. And so when I think about how libraries are these really fantastic places that need more funding and more support than ever before, especially because we are such a tech-focused world, right? It's one thing to have the tech. It's another thing to be able to utilize it in a safe, publicly funded place. And I think libraries are fantastic. So if I can say anything about this is that you should check out your local library, support your local library. They do fantastic work. And I'd be curious to see if we can get some amount of game preservation in the form of local libraries. I don't know if it necessarily needs to be online servers, but maybe we can find a way to legally emulate these older games so that they are accessible, PC emulation, whatever the case may be. Because I do think that public libraries could be equipped for preserving video games. I just don't know if they can do it in an online capacity. But of course, the rights holders for these the rights holders for these games, the people that own the IPs, are not going to do that because they would love the idea of selling you these things down the road. However, there are a lot of games that you just can't sell because of licensing purposes. Let's do it this way. No one is going to sell Home Alone for the original Nintendo console because the licensing is a nightmare. Right? As an example, right? They're probably not going to re-release, fucking Halloween for the Atari 2600 or whatever. It's not going to happen. But I would like to think that libraries could be in a position to support some amount of game preservation, but we shall see. We're going to take a really quick break. And when we come back, we got more news. So stick around. We will be right back. All right, we are back, and we are back to talk about more news. Let's talk Steam. During the break, I hastily tried to come up with a top 10 PS4 games list. I did not get 10. So the work remains for that list. I was scrambling to come up with some games. Kind of going off my idea that that it's one of the best. That Titanfall 2 is one of the greatest PS4 games of all time. So I'll keep chipping away at that at that list. Maybe I'll kind of give you a hint of what that list looks like. And then maybe we will get back to it on another podcast. Maybe I might need to edit this list down or something. But here we go with more new Steam. Steam is one of the few digital gaming storefronts that allow you to get refunds for games. It's a beautiful thing. It really is. However, with it being a refund policy that's digital, some people abuse the system. And I'm not here to call out those abusers one way or the other. It is what it is, right? However, Steam is trying to plug up a couple of loopholes. Valve has updated its refund policy on Steam, making a small but significant change in the process. This update policy means players will no longer be able to exploit a loophole that allowed them to play an advanced access game for more than 2 hours and still request a refund down the line. So here's what I need you to know. Here's what you need to know. When you buy a game on Steam, you can play it for up to 2 hours and receive up to 2 hours within 14 days and receive a full refund. Bada bing, bada boom. One of the things that games do as part of pre-order bonuses is that they may give you advanced access to a game and allow you to play it early. This is important to know because you may not be getting a refund for a game until it's out. Meaning if you bought the fancy version of Starfield on Steam, you may not be getting that refund until after the game comes out, even if you played it for more than 2 hours. Sharing this news on its amended policy, Valve explained that, quote, playtime acquired during the advanced access period will now count towards the Steam refund period. Meaning that you could play it for 2 hours, but the 2 hours wouldn't kick in until the game was actually out. Now it does. Which itself states that player can ask for their money back as long as they have purchased the game within the last 14 days and played less than 2 hours. So if you pre-ordered the game, played it for more than 2 hours, but didn't touch it after it came out, but refunded it within 14 days, you could do that. Now you can no longer do that. Here is what Steam has to say on refunds for titles purchased prior to their release date following the amendment. When you purchase a title on Steam prior to the release date, the 2-hour playtime limit for refunds will apply, except for beta testing. But the 14-day period for refunds will not start until the release date of the game. For example, if you purchase a game that's in early access or advanced access, any playtime will count against the 2-hour refund limit. If you pre-purchase a title, which is not playable prior to the release day, you can request a refund at any time prior to release of that title, and the standard 14-day/2-hour refund period will apply starting on game's release date. Interesting, plugging up a loophole. I still think that more digital storefronts should have this some amount of refund policy. I think PlayStation should have a refund policy that's as easy to use as Steam. I think Xbox, I think Nintendo. Everybody should have a easy access digital refund policy in a world where most people are buying games digitally. However, there have been loopholes and Steam has slowly been plugging away at it. Now this one goes out to my old heads, my gray-haired gamers. Atari has brought back Infogrames as a publishing label. The brand, which hasn't seen active use for around 2 decades, will specialize in acquiring and publishing games that, quote, fall outside of the core portfolio of IP associated with the Atari brand. Infogrames, especially during like the PS1 era, was publishing a lot of licensed games. So like Infogrames was putting out like Looney Tunes games, Bugs Bunny games, and that sort of thing. And it seems like that's what they might still be doing now that they have been revived under the ownership of Atari. The other thing to note is at the time, Infogrames bought Atari, changed that name to Infogrames. So Infogrames at one point was Atari, and then the Atari name got brought back, and now Atari is reviving Infogrames as its own separate thing. It's a little messy, but hey, it's a thing. Hey, it's a thing. The world's worst podcaster. For decades, Infogrames built a reputation as a publisher and developer of amazing and eclectic games. We are excited to bring it back. Atari CEO and chairman Wade Rosen said in a statement. Infogrames may eventually turn into some sort of a legacy publisher Infogrames may eventually turn to some of its legacy titles published by its previous incantation, but for now, its first acquisition is Totally Reliable Delivery Service. The 2019 game, its trademarks and its underlying property have been acquired from Tiny Build and now belong to Infogrames. With Totally Reliable Delivery Service, Infogrames is starting off with a strong IP that has loyal and enthusiastic player base. The Infogrames team will be able to expand upon the strong work of Tiny Build and re-energize this high potential franchise. Atari said that Infogrames will be consistent with Atari's approach in that it will see game preservation as, quote, a core component of its mission. Infogrames was set up in France in 1983 and initially specialized in developing and publishing home computer games, many of which were exclusive to France, before also branching out in consoles in the 90s. Titles associated with Infogrames in the past included Alone in the Dark, Asterix, V-Rally, Heart of Darkness, and numerous games based on Tintin, the Smurfs, and Looney Tunes. Throughout the late 90s, Infogrames started acquiring other companies, including Ocean, Gremlin Interactive, DMA Designs, which was then sold to Take-Two and then later became Rockstar, Accolade, Beam Software, GT Interactive, Hasbro Interactive, Microprose, and Atari. In 2003, then rebranded its subsidiaries from Infogrames to Atari ones, effectively retiring the Infogrames brand. It is a wild roller coaster for Atari. I mean, that goes without saying. But Infogrames as well. But now Infogrames is a sub-label under Atari. Is basically all you really need to know. We have some news stories. We have a couple other news stories. Like one of these news stories is weird. The other news story is short. But hey, I order these in, kind of, relevance and importance. This is happening next week. A new indie games showcase is coming to Xbox next week, featuring Dungeons of Hinterberg, 33 Immortals, Lost Record, Bloom and Rage, Vampire Survivors, and more. Viewable on IGN and its social media platforms, the indie game showcase will be streamed April 29th, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. It will feature, quote, another batch of hotly anticipated indie games for you to play across Xbox and PC. On top of epic trailers, fresh gameplay, and new reveals, the show will feature new details on upcoming games like Dungeons of Hinterberg, 33 Immortals, Lost Records, Bloom and Rage, and many more, the platform said. A similar showcase last year included the looks at Karateka, Axiom Verge 2, Sea of Stars, and other games. Xbox recently showcased 4 indie titles releasing as part of its ID at Xbox program. The games shown were Botany Manor, which is available now, and upcoming titles Jump Ship, Nightscape, and Still Wakes the Deep. Running until May 10th, they're also doing a promotion for a bunch of their games as well. But if you're looking for some hot new indie games, we'll find out more next week. I'm assuming that not all of these games are going to be exclusive to Xbox and PC, but sometimes they do timed exclusives where the game doesn't come to PlayStation for a year or something like that. Still thinking about the greatest PS4 games of all time. Don't you worry. I'm still trying to rack my brain around what those could possibly be. Final news story, 7 Days to Die, the first-person zombie survival game, is exiting early access after a decade. However, console players will have to re-buy the game. Now, you might be thinking, oh my God, were we having flashbacks to the PlayStation Plus debacle from earlier on the show? I don't think that's necessarily the case, but let me explain. The original console port will be delisted, and the plan is to give previous owners a discount, which means you will still be able to play the unfinished version of 7 Days to Die if you own the early access version on PC. However, you will not get the free upgrade to the final release of the game. Open world zombie survival game 7 Days to Die launched in early access on Steam in 2013. 3 years later, the game arrived on consoles, and now over a decade after its initial launch, 7 Days to Die is finally leaving early access with its 1.0 update. However, console players will have to rebuy the game to see the future of 7 Days to Die. This is Kotaku contextualizing and editorializing, which I'm fine with. I'll read it. The world was a much different place in 2013. For example, the concept of games launching in early access with future updates adding more content over time was still fairly new. It had been popularized earlier by Minecraft, which launched with limited features and content and was gradually updated to becoming bigger and better. To help other devs pull off similar development schedule in March of 2013, Valve officially added the early access system to its digital storefront. And later in December, the zombie survival game 7 Days to Die would launch in early access and become one of the program's first big success stories. And now one of the first early access games ever is finally leaving. Announced on April 20th on 420, maybe they were high when they came up with this idea. 7 Days to Die is launching its 1.0 update sometime in June. This update was previously known as Alpha 22, though developer Fun Pimps I forget. I forget that the developer of 7 Days to Die is called Fun Pimps. I thought all pimps were fun, but maybe I just don't know that much about pimping or fun for that matter. Developer Fun Pimp says it was always planned to be 1.0 internally compared to being referred to as Alpha 22. The developer says there will be an experimental early release in May, followed by a stable retail launch the next month. As part of this new 1.0 launch, the game will be going up in price. The price of 7 Days to Die is also increasing to $45, but it's currently on sale for just $6 in the lead up to its big update. But what about the console players? In a fact posted shortly after the announcement, the devs explained that this was what was going on with the console ports of the game. The game originally came out on PS4 and Xbox One in 2016. Those games were developed by Iron Galaxy and published by Telltale Games. However, due to Telltale Games going bankrupt in 2017, the console ports of 7 Days to Die stopped receiving immediate updates and have mostly been left abandoned by the Fun Pimps, even after the studio got control of the ports in 2019. So if you've been playing the console versions of 7 Days to Die, they're completely out of date and completely irrelevant, and they've been basically abandoned. Even though the company doesn't have to abandon them if they didn't want to, but they are because it was originally put out by Telltale, who have gone bankrupt. Since then, fans have wanted an update on console ports and whether they will be updated again. The answer is no. In a section of the fact dedicated to the console versions of the games, the Fun Pimps explained that a new version of 7 Days to Die was coming to consoles a few weeks after the PC launch of 1.0. Meanwhile, the original console ports are going to be delisted and won't be supported or updated to 1.0. Old saves won't be supported either. While the developer plans to offer a discount to owners of those previous versions, it did confirm that players will have to rebuy the Xbox Series X and S and or PS5 version to enjoy 7 Days to Die when its new content and features come out. Fun Pimps blames significant technical differences between the old and current console hardware as the reason it can't update the original ports after the game is delisted and removed from Game Pass. Players who own it already will still be able to download and play it, but future console players will have to buy the new console versions. That's how the cookie crumbles. This news was received with mixed reactions from the community. Some understand the situation, blaming Telltale's bankruptcy for the out-of-date console ports currently available, while others are less charitable, asking why folks who bought the game years ago with the hopes of receiving future updates are now being asked to buy it again. Others have argued that the Fun Pimp's suggestion that the company's decision early on to focus on a new version of the game implies that it knew it wasn't going to support the old console versions for a while now, yet continued to sell those versions on PS4 and Xbox One. Regardless of the mess, the Fun Pimps say they plan on supporting both versions of 7 Days to Die for years to come after the release of 1.0, adding new features and more content. Hopefully this time the console ports don't get left behind after just a year. I wouldn't buy this game. There's absolutely I briefly messed around with 7 Days to Die. I was over at somebody's house and they had downloaded the PS Plus version of that game, and it seemed like a completely unfinished fucking turd burger of a game. It seemed like a piece of shit. And now I know why, because it wasn't updated. So it seems like the only version of the game that ever got any love in TLC was the PC version of that game, even if you bought the console version. And now people are being asked to rebuy the console version of a game that was a piece of shit on console. I wouldn't do this. I wouldn't do this. I think it's a terrible idea. Listen, I'm not saying boycott the game. I'm not doing any of that stuff, but I'm just saying if I was trying to make an informed decision on purchasing 7 Days to Die, and I saw what had happened leading up to the full release of the game, I would say that is a company and a game not worth supporting. You know, I would not want to support a game that had that road to release from a company that did that to their customers. The other thing I would say is there are a zillion survival games out there. I understand that not every survival game has zombies in it. But you know what? The ghouls in Fallout 76 are kind of like zombies. If you want to play a survival crafting game, go play No Man's Sky. Go play Fallout 76. Go play Minecraft. Go play anything other than this game, which has proven for nearly a decade to be a bad, unfinished game on consoles, and thus shouldn't give a lot of people hope and confidence with the full version. And that's all I really have to say on the matter. So I've been picking away at Fallout 76. I've slowed down a little bit. I have run into some difficulty spikes in some of the parts of the world. There have been a couple of scenarios where there have been like how would I put it? So the world of Fallout 76, because it's an online game, is a lot more dynamic and reactive than something like Fallout 76, which is fine. More dynamic and reactive than something like Fallout 4, which is fine. Fallout 4 is a single player game. But there are times in the game where events are happening. There's like an abandoned fairground. There's like an abandoned county fair in Fallout, and sometimes that surrounding area is taken over by wolves. And if you go and shoot all the wolves, you'll get rewards for doing so, and then maybe you'll come back in a day or two and there'll be more wolves and you'll shoot the wolves, and the cycle repeats. It's optional content. Don't worry about it if you don't do it. But there are also other events that happen, such as radiation, basically taking over a part of the world. And one of the quests that I had was to go to that part of the world. So I'm like, I don't really know what to expect when I get there. And one thing that you can do in Fallout 76 is you can fast travel. So you can pick the area on the map that you've been to, which I had already been to before, fast travel there. I fast travel there into the heart of the radiation that's taking over that part, and I immediately died. Like I died in like 2 minutes because I was in the heart of it. It was like this giant circle taking up a portion of the map, and I died of radiation poisoning, and I died, and that was it. Had I put 2 and 2 together, I could have just opened up the Pip-Boy menu, fast travel to a different part of the map that doesn't have that, and wait for it to happen. So what I did is I decided to walk around the perimeter of this radiation poisoning. And again, the map is very good about telling you where these events are and what's happening. So as I'm walking around the perimeter, I come across this like big super mutant who has a significantly higher power level than me, and he's impossible to kill because I'm doing very little damage to him. So I don't know where I need to approach, exploration in Fallout 76. But I've come across a couple of things that have gotten in the way of my ability to progress as much as I would like and explore as much as I would like. I think in my scenario, I need to get the power armor. If you've seen the show, you know what the power armor is. I think I need to get the power armor in order to explore these radiated areas in Fallout 76. And then I think I just need to get better guns and weapons and stuff like that in order to take on the big super mutants as well. There are plenty of other objectives and missions for me to do. Like, don't think that like I've hit I've hit a small bump in the road in Fallout 76, but nothing too crazy. Because I can continue playing it and do other objectives and missions, no problem. I wanted to focus on the story of Horizon Forbidden West, but I have just hit a real just lull in that game. I'm 2/3 of the way done the main story. At some point I'm going to get to that ending, but I have just hit a lull. So I've actually put Horizon Forbidden West down. I'm going to walk away from it. Maybe I'll come back to it, in a month or two. I've enjoyed my time with the game. I've put a decent amount of time into the game. I think I put about 20 hours into Fallout 76. I probably put about 30 or so hours into Horizon Forbidden West. So don't tell me I haven't played these games. I've been playing them, but I just think that like with the Fallout mania that's going on, and also just being a more interesting game to explore and run around in, I think I'm going to focus more of my time on Fallout 76 for the time being. So there'll probably be a lot more like significant Fallout 76 talk next week on the podcast, because that is going to be the thing I'm going to focus on. I'm not going to try to bang my head on Horizon Forbidden West for the time being. I think for Horizon Forbidden West is a gorgeous game, and I've enjoyed playing a good chunk of it, but I think that story starts to drag. I think some of the missions, like the main story missions, start to drag as well. I feel like I'm just running through the same corridors and hallways and bunkers and all of these other areas and caves in Horizon Forbidden West, which is super funny to say because I'm kind of doing the same thing in Fallout 76. I just find it more interesting. So take that for what you will. Okay. I have an unfinished, unedited, incomplete list of the best PS4 and Xbox One games of the generation. This is not complete. This is not in any order. Do not come to me being like, I can't believe you didn't include this game. I can't believe this wasn't And also I'm going to say, for the sake of this, I was going to say, should we include Xbox One games on this list? Considering Titanfall came out on PC, Xbox, and PlayStation 4. I'm going to fuck with this. I'm going to keep messing with this for now, but because I do have some multi-platform games on this list. So I'm not saying these are the best like PlayStation exclusives. It's just someone asked about Titanfall and I was like, it's one of the best games on PS4 and Xbox. And that's where my mind on PS4 and Xbox One. So that's where my mind went. So without further ado, this is my incomplete list of the best games on the PS4 and Xbox. Well, these are, you can play all of these games on PS4. You can't play all these games on Xbox, but here we go. The best games, in my humble opinion. This is an incomplete top 10 list because I'm the world's worst David Letterman impersonator. Number 1, we have Red Dead Redemption 2. Followed by Titanfall 2, because I was like, oh, right, this is the whole reason I started writing this list. Following that up, I have Hitman. I have Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain. I have What Remains of Edith Finch. I have Tetris Effect, or Tetris Effect Connected, depending on which version you have. And I have Spider-Man Miles Morales. Again, this is an incomplete list. I'm not done. If I'm going to include multi-platform games, maybe I'll sprinkle in some Xbox games in there as well. But Titanfall 2 is one of the best games of the PS4 and Xbox generation. There's no doubt about it. As well as those other games too. So keep that in mind. Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor is pretty good. Pretty good. I'm going to need to consider that as well. Anyways, I got to play some Fallout 76, man. I just got to keep going with that game. I got to get that damn power armor. Though I got to say, I like the power armor in Fallout. I don't like the Brotherhood of Steel. I am not, and I'm no spoilers on the show or nothing like that, but I do not like the Brotherhood of Steel. I do not trust the Brotherhood of Steel. So yeah, I'm done talking. I just want to be quiet and move on from everything in my life. No, I'm joking. That's going to do it for the podcast. I do have some TikToks and stuff I got to record. Hopefully the lighting and video in this has been good. I don't look too pale, though I am pretty fly for a white guy. So, if you have feedback, please provide it. Be nice. I know I'm bald. I know I'm white and pale. I know I'm white and nerdy like that Weird Al song. But if you have any genuine constructive feedback to write, no more mean comments, please. I know, nerdy Steve Austin. I get it. White and nerdy Weird Al. I get it. But that's going to do it for the podcast. I have been GnittWitt. You can find everything that I do over at my Linktree, linktree.com/GnittWitt, GnittWitt, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, you name it, you know it, you love it. I am there. More TikToks and Instagram videos coming up soon. We will see you all next week as episode 91 done, son. We'll see you next time. Take it easy.